Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Liberty and Justice for Who. We've been gone a couple weeks or a week or so, but we're back. Just had some things we had to take care of. Today we are covering something that is really poignant, I think, at this time in the world. We're going to cover the execution of Kenneth Smith. Kenneth Eugene Smith, that took place just this past Thursday, January 25th. So without further ado, Omar's going to get us started with that, and we'll go from there.
Salute, y'all. Alabama inmate Kenneth Smith was put to death Thursday night by nitrogen, marking the nation's first known execution by this method. Now, Alabama Attorney General wants to help other states interested in using this method of capital punishment. He recently held a press conference and he said, Alabama has done it, and now so can you. And we stand ready to assist you in implementing this method in your states. I'm going to say that again. Alabama has done it, and now so can you. And we stand ready to assist you in implementing this method in your state. Before I go further, I want Sister Jeanette to touch on the difference because some of you might be reading nitrogen, what's it called? Hypoxia. They were trying to say, Jeanette.
Yeah, they're basically making it sound kind of fluffy and better and less painful, basically. But there is a very significant difference in between asphyxia and hypoxia. So I have to read it from Wikipedia because I don't have it memorized. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, the reason why I'm asking to bring this out is because it's very important that we pay attention to the wordplay and what's actually being done, and don't be deceived by just the wordplay.
Right, and we also have to recognize the fact that ADOC said that it would be over within seconds. That
30 seconds.
Smith, yeah, exactly. And in reality, from start at 7:53 to 8:08, that was not 30 seconds. They started infusing at 7:53, and he ceased movement at 8:08, like 45 minutes. So keep that in mind. They lied a lot. Okay, asphyxiation is the deprivation of oxygen that can result in unconsciousness and often death. An act of asphyxiating a person or animal or a state of asphyxia, suffocation. The autopsy would show that the cause of death is asphyxiation. Hypoxia is a condition in which the body or a region of the body is deprived of adequate oxygen supply at the tissue level. Hypoxia may be classified as either generalized, affecting the whole body, or local, affecting a region of the body where you lack sufficient blood flow. Like I have a disorder called Raynaud's, and I get my fingertips, they turn like purple or white because I don't have good circulation. So that's kind of similar to a hypoxia, like tissue hypoxia. Variations in arterial oxygen concentrations can be part of the normal physiology, for example, during strenuous physical exercise. It doesn't say anything about causing death. So just to be clear, they're doing execution by nitrogen asphyxiation. Okay?
So can you break that down for people who might be having even a hard time following what you're saying as far as the difference of
basically hypoxia is it's on like the tissue level where you simply your arteries for whatever reason don't function at the level that they should, and you don't get adequate blood supply. And in severe cases, you can get like tissue death, where
Sounds almost like frostbite, huh? A little.
similar. I mean, very similar. Yeah, it's like that's like a severe case. But that is what hypoxia is. It's like a either a generalized all over thing or localized, like me with my fingertips and my toes. Asphyxiation is where you are being deprived and suffocated of oxygen. So,
Interesting
yeah.
that they would put the play on those words. And that's why I wanted her to touch on that. Also, before we go into the case, I wanted to touch on um, the botched executions prior to Mr. Smith's execution by gas. I'm just going to call it choking by gas, strangulation by gas. It says prior to Mr. Smith's execution, this is coming from various sources like CNN, MSNBC, and beyond. They were saying there were 3 botched executions, Mr. Smith being one of them. It says one of those attempts was an attempt to lethally inject Kenneth Eugene Smith, basically in his veins, and it was unsuccessful. They ended up sticking the needle into his muscle and his collarbone. That was a very brutal process, and Sister Jeanette would touch on that later. It was very brutal. The other botched execution was of Alan Eugene Miller. This attempt was also to lethally inject him. It was unsuccessful. The other one, which I find all of this is very telling and chilling, but this third one, this just sound like something out of a 1923 horror film. It says there was a completed execution of Joe Nathan James in Alabama. These are all Alabama, where the state had to cut into Nathan's skin, cut into his skin to access his veins. Now let's think about that, where
Wow.
you have a needle that's supposed to lethally inject the lethal injection, the chemical, whatever they do, Mr. Nathan's body, and they're cutting into his skin.
What year was that?
The reporter didn't mention what year. It was very recently, and I was looking for
Okay.
that. And it's strange how this information is scattered around. But
That's interesting.
for them to do that shows a level like we were speaking about earlier. The people's they're not trained. You have correctional officers, and for those of you who might be wondering, they're not getting medical doctors or nurses, or there's no one designated with a medical license to go in
Right.
and find a person's vein or administer the nitrogen. So these are correctional officers. So you can see how many nurses might tell you straight up, it's hard to find people's veins, even with their training that they have. It's hard to find people's veins, and everybody's veins are not visible like that. And sometimes you may be different medical conditions. From what I've seen is being incarcerated, that I've had elderly patients where I used to take care of elderly people, where they used to get stuck again and again
Yeah.
because people couldn't access their veins. So can you imagine with the stress of doing the execution, a correctional officer, untrained, don't know the anatomy of the body, going in and trying to find a vein? That's why they had to cut open this man's skin.
Yeah.
So that's very telling. And also, before I switch over to Sister Jeanette, I want you to know that 2 other states have already approved this method of death by nitrogen gas, strangulation, um, Mississippi and Oklahoma. So in my mind, it's starting down south. It's going to start down south. I might be wrong, but it seems like it's going to start down south and go around all the country. And that's very unfortunate. But Sister Jeanette, can you please touch on? No, I'm not going to leave it like that. I'm going to say we the people can stop this.
Yes, we
We can
can.
stop this. We have the power to do it. We have the ability to do it. It's unfortunate what happened to Mr. Smith, and I'm disturbed about it. but we the people can come together and make our impact felt. And I
Right.
just wanted to say that before I just switch over to her. Sister Jeanette, would you please touch on the issues of the trial that you were researching?
I first want to say, if it was a recent case with that gentleman that you said that they had to cut into, there is absolutely no reason. I worked at a hospital for 11 years and I have never seen anybody have to cut into somebody's skin. You either put the tourniquet on really tight, slap the arm, hang it low. They bring in a PICC line unit where they have a scope. It's like a light that will light up the veins. That way you can do it. But again, these people are not medically trained. They're
Exactly.
correctional officers with nothing but a diploma, which is absolutely absurd. I don't even know how it's legal, honestly. I really don't. Physicians won't participate in this kind of thing because they take an oath to do no harm. They're not going to participate in killing people. And the reason that these southern states are resulting to nitrogen is because the pharmaceutical companies refuse to sell their drugs. They don't want to be involved in it either. They realize the worth of human life. And I just think it's funny that these states that do these horrific killings, even Utah, they do death by firing squad. The last one was 13 years ago, and the next one is next month. They call themselves the Bible Belt. It's just very ironic and hypocritical, I think.
Before you get to the trial, can I say this one thing? You made me think about how when you talked about the doctors won't do it in the drugs, the pharmaceutical companies. I remember reading about nitrogen and how they were saying what stood out to me that they stopped using it on animals because of the effects that it was causing, the trauma that was causing animals. And I'm not saying that animals should be tortured. Animals have rights as well. We should respect all life.
Right.
But it stood out to me in my mind when they said they stopped using nitrogen on animals. In particular cases, a lot of people just backed away from it because they said it was cruel.
Right.
But yet you have these states like she was touching on that's so desperate to get these executions done because the pharmaceutical companies are taking away a lot of the drugs that were used out to euthanize animals, and they were using these over the period of time to put people to death. So a lot of companies started. I remember watching the broadcast and saying how these pharmaceutical companies were pushing back, banning their products or withdrawing their products literally from the market so states couldn't do executions. Now you have this nitrogen who people were saying, well, nitrogen is not humane on animals. But the governor of Alabama says, basically, we did it. We here, and we're going to help y'all to do it as well.
She should be so proud. She should be so proud. Public enemy number one, Kay Ivey. Way to go. It's one of the most painful deaths, honestly, from the articles that I've read from physicians. And, as the law, we are supposed to, or they are supposed to be better than the worst criminal. So how are you being better than the worst criminal by committing the very same act? It makes no sense to me. You're setting a precedent that, you say murder is illegal, killing is illegal, whatever you want to call it, execution, it's all the same. You say it's okay for the state to do it, but you're going to condemn the people to do it. And I'm not promoting murder. I'm just saying it makes zero sense whatsoever. So just something I had to bring up. It really boggles my mind how people don't understand that. So anyway, I will go into the actual case. Let's see. Okay, so Kenneth Smith was convicted of first-degree murder of 45-year-old Elizabeth Sennett. He was recruited on by a gentleman by the name of Billy Gray Williams. Billy Gray Williams was, I guess, a tenant of Mr. Sennett, which is the husband of Elizabeth, the victim. And Mr. Sennett said that he would hire Mr. Gray and give him $1,000 to murder his wife because apparently she was cheating on him. Mr. Gray recruited Mr. Smith on and another gentleman, John Forrest Parker. So 3 people, $1,000 each. They followed through with it. They did murder her. The guy that was originally contracted, Billy Gray, he didn't actually commit the murder. It was Kenneth and Mr. Forrest that carried it out. So, they always go for the husband first. So they brought the husband in, which I don't know if I said it. He's a pastor, by the way. They brought him in for questioning. He denied. Finally, they let him go. He's walking down the hallway, and someone asked him, "Don't you know Kenneth Smith?" And he turned like beet red. And immediately after that, he drove to his church. He met his family there. He said that Elizabeth was cheating on him. He confessed to hiring someone to murder her. And then he proceeded to go to his car and he shot himself because he knew he was going to be implicated. So Mr. Gray, Billy Gray Williams, he got life. Let me see. Yeah, he was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, but he died in 2020, so he got off scot-free. And then Kenneth Smith, and John Forrest Parker were both sentenced to death. Parker was executed by lethal injection in June 2010. But the first time that Kenneth was convicted, they overturned it upon his appeal and gave him life. And then he had another trial in 2022, and the jury came out. They suggested, or they came up with a decision of life without the possibility of parole. The judge overruled that, and he sentenced Mr. Smith to death. And so, let's see, when was it? Okay, so this is what's messed up. November 2022, Kenneth Smith was scheduled for execution. The Supreme Court, at the last minute, they granted him a stay. But the officers or officials, they still took Kenneth, shackled him, walked him down, dead man walking, took him to the death chamber, strapped him to the gurney. They did not tell him that he was granted a stay. They didn't allow him to speak with his lawyers. Nothing. He had no idea. He thought he was going to die. So they strapped him to the gurney. Whoever's in charge of, trying and attempting to start the lines, they fished around for like an hour and 20 minutes, and they couldn't do it. They got into his muscle. He was like, you're in my muscle. They're like, no, we're not. They tried to do a central line here in his collar. They had no idea what they were doing. So after an hour and 20 minutes, they invert the gurney, the execution table, into an inverted crucifix, which I've been researching it, and I cannot find any reason why they would do that. There is absolutely no information available as to why they did that. Not for venous flow or nothing. And then the execution team came in and they injected him with an unknown substance, which I don't know why nobody knows what the substance is, but unknown substance. And after that, they took him back, I guess, to his cell. He couldn't walk. His arms weren't working. and that was it. Let's see. Give me a minute. Oh, okay. So I guess after that, it says that in the time available for the
That's when they basically voted in that nitrogen.
Yeah, they also after that, because they ran out of time, the
Yeah,
the the
death
death
warrant
warrant.
expired.
Yeah, so KIV had it, changed so that there is no like amount of time. You can just keep going until you get there. You know what I mean? Which is absurd. But they also made an agreement that they would not subject him to
Lethal death by lethal injection.
lethal injection. Yeah. Okay. And then so the final time was January 25th when he was actually executed. He was out of appeals, from the second trial that he had. His attorney did one last stitch effort to appeal to the Supreme Court. They denied it. I don't know how, but they denied it. And Kenneth had his last meal 8 hours before, because he was getting sick for days prior to the execution, like vomiting, and they wanted to make sure that he had ample time to digest, I suppose. Um, and he got a chance to speak with his wife. His wife was actually there. She attended. And let's see. Yeah, and at 7:53, they took him in, and like I said, he ceased movement at 8:08, and uh, they called it his death at, I believe it was 8:15.
Hmm.
So no, I'm sorry, 8:25. They closed the curtains at 8:15. He was declared deceased at 8:25. Um, and there you go. There's the first individual to be executed by a poisonous gas.
What the Attorney General referred to as a textbook case. You know, obviously because Mr. Smith, from what I read, they said that he admitted to doing the murder. And the question that came in my mind, okay, regardless of how you feel about the death penalty, whether you feel it's right or wrong, looking
Sorry.
at the history, the long history of people getting exonerated from the death penalty after they were put to death. Now we can't bring their life back from suffering because we can't go back. There were many botched executions and stop the suffering that was done last year, or even in Mr. Smith's case when it came to execution. So you have people all over the world, from the United Nations to the Vatican to media people to anti-death penalty activists, saying it was cruel and unusual, and making that clear that Mr. Smith would more than likely suffer for a long time. And he did. It wasn't over in 30 seconds. It went on for nearly 30 minutes, if not 30 minutes exactly. So my question to the people would be, regardless of Smith's implication or his guilt, they say he confessed. Let's look at a wider implications of this, right? Do you believe that nitrogen should be used to put people to death? Should it be used regardless of a person's innocence or guilt? Because Mr. Smith's last words were, well, not his last words. 2 days before the execution, he had an interview with the Guardian. Pretty sure many of you heard of that paper. And in the interview, he was saying, "I fear that my execution will be successful, and you will have a nitrogen system coming to your state very soon." So obviously, Mr. Smith knew that his execution, like the Attorney General basically said, it's a textbook slam dunk case for us. Nobody gonna step up on this. Alabama will, and in fact, we will help you. Now let's listen to his words. He said, "We will help you." What does other states have to do with Alabama?
Right.
Now he's volunteering as an attorney general to help other states
Kill people.
kill people outside of his jurisdiction.
Yeah.
So what does that say about the mentality of this attorney general? What does it say about the mentality of these people who take these positions?
Of the governor, of John Hamm, the commissioner, all of them. The Supreme Court, too.
So
Mercy
are
humanity.
we, especially when you look at the juvenile system, with young men and women making decisions with their brain not being fully formed and all this science behind it, just being very young, death sentence. You're looking at the racism that comes into play, looking at the sexism that comes into play. You're looking at all these various issues. Are you willing to say as a people that we're going to allow this to come into our state? This nitrogen, this mentality of, if you, the pharmaceutical company, will not give us, the state, the ability, the power, the authority to kill people with your chemicals, we will find other means.
Yeah.
Nitrogen is what they're using today. Tomorrow can be another gas, another issue, another gas, another whatever it is. So I had to say, are we going to allow this? And we need to come together and figure out pressure campaigns, whether it be economic pressure campaigns and or voting campaigns, and make sure the people that push these agendas, why would this attorney general, why else would he get on TV
And say something like that.
not even maybe a week later, probably was the next day or the day,
Yeah, it was like a day. I think it was a day later, maybe
and
2.
say, we're going to help you. We're going to help you learn how we did this because we got a textbook example. I find that very chilling, especially and very sickening to my core. And when I think about the implications of this, and last thing I'll say before I let Sister Jeanette jump in is, I make a special call to all the activists in the communities. It's my brothers and sisters in the community. We need to tighten up. Not saying that we're not working. We need to tighten up even more because Mr. Smith is a white man, and we know the history of the death penalty, the injustice in it. Normally it's aimed at people that look like me and you, those of us who know what it is. We need to tighten up. We need to make sure that we're taking care of our communities and holding them even closer now because they're not playing. They started with Mr. Smith, who is a Caucasian man. People don't want to hear this, and I'm going to say it. They started with a Caucasian man. It's going to explode when it comes to black and brown people. You best to believe.
Yeah.
Especially down south. So we need to make sure we're taking care of our communities. We need to make sure that the younger generation is aware that these people are coming up with new ways to take us out.
Right.
We can't play around. We got to hold our children tighter. We got to hold our youth tighter. We got to make sure that we're doing more because they're making it easier to do less to kill us. When I mean by less, they're not even caring no more. They saying, look, man, we're going to put gas on you. And not to say that they cared before, but now it's just easier.
Yeah.
We're not even going to wrestle with the pharmaceutical companies now. We got the gas in the back.
Yeah. There's plenty of methods. Next it'll be crucifixion. Like, for real. I would not be surprised one day. Like, they'll stop at nothing to kill you. And I think that they started with Kenneth for a reason as a white man. I think that they wanted to show people, like, we're going to do this to anybody. It's not a color thing. We just want to kill. We want money and we want population control. Because if you don't know what that is, that's what it is. So yeah. Uh, also, it's not, when you execute somebody, that's not justice. Like, you can look it up in Wikipedia and it says, tit for tat, eye for an eye, whatever, but that is not justice. That is revenge. When you kill somebody for killing somebody, that's an eye for an eye. And that's not bringing the victim back. That's not going to give the family peace. They may think that it gives them peace, but they're never going to have peace. Their loved one is gone. What what would bring healing and peace would be to truly reform that individual, to give them the tools to become a decent human being, to give them a chance to be reformed, to give them time, after a while to meet with the family and truly apologize. Not that that brings it back, but it does mean something, if they can see that they're changed and they truly are sorry and they wouldn't do it again. And if the state would provide, money, resources for the victim's family to get the help that they need. Me and you were talking about that, Omar, like getting the therapy that you need and education for the children that are left behind. That's justice. Like, killing to kill, it makes no freaking sense at all. I just don't understand it. And I hope that people will start to open their eyes a little bit more to that, because it can happen to anybody. Honestly, it can happen to anybody. Anybody can be wrongfully convicted. Not that Kenneth was, but I'm saying there have been many people that were wrongfully convicted and executed. Nathaniel Woods was one of them. I mean, it can happen to anyone. And for some reason, people, they think that if it doesn't affect them, it can't ever happen to them, or, they're good people, so we're immune. That's not the case. It's really not. You got to play devil's advocate, because it can happen to anybody. So,
like you were saying, in the resources, because he was on death row since like '88, something like that.
yeah, yep.
Can you imagine all that money that was put into maintaining him, the manpower, maintaining him on death row, the additional guards? You're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars
Mm-hmm.
that could have been invested in healing that family. You're talking about college funds, like you said, therapy. You're talking about potential um, programs from the grassroots level that can be put into the family instead of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not more, into maintaining somebody on death row for decades.
Right.
You know, um,
Costs a lot of money to keep them on death row, and to execute somebody
exactly.
costs more to execute somebody than it does to house somebody for life in prison without parole.
And it's the regular prison population. The money that they spend on keeping you incarcerated, they can put that same money into college education. They will actually have money left over. I think it's anywhere between 50 grand or more between most prisoners. Um,
Anywhere from 20 to like 60, depending upon what state you're in.
Depending on what state you're in, you can get. Right now, I'm in a program for personal trainer. It costs me $1,800 in installment payments. you know, come on now.
Right.
Certificates cost significantly less than what it costs to incarcerate somebody. So you can get the money behind, improving people's lives, and you don't have to agree with. Because some people are like, well, if you kill one of mine, hey, I'm gonna kill you. The state has the power to kill you. Okay, that's open. That's an open debate. Some people believe in it, some people don't. But in reality, when you look at the money being spent, you're talking about usually when a person gets a death penalty, they're sitting there for decades.
Yeah.
These are your tax dollars. These are the people's tax dollars.
typically 30 years is
Exactly.
like, yeah.
Can you imagine the money that was taken for that one person? You probably can deal with that one family and beyond
Hmm.
if the money was put into healing the community and building the community. You know, instead of this
But
maintain
that's
this
the
revenge.
problem. We know that's not their agenda. They
Oh
don't
yeah.
care about healing the community. They don't care about um, getting real justice for families. They don't care about protecting, the public. It's all about money. Cash rules everything around them. Like, I'm not just saying that because I love Wu Tang. Like, it's real
Hmm.
shit. Um, and I find it interesting. I don't know. I am opposed, obviously, to the death penalty, but I would just think that people would care more knowing how much money they're spending for people to be killed. Like, even if you aren't the family of somebody that's been murdered, like neither of us are, but we're still paying money for our state to kill people, and it's not like unicorns licking your skin. It's painful, that alone convicts me. I just like, it doesn't sit right with me.
Yeah, you're right. I think it needs to be more awareness of like you say, that's not on their agenda, but it has to be on the people's agenda to
Right.
say we're going to control our destiny. We're going to control more of our resources because we know what the government is doing and what they're going to do. So, what direction are we, the people, going to go in? And that's why I made a special call to the brothers and sisters in the community, those who are fighting with the youth, fighting with the youth for a better future. We got to secure our communities. We have to secure our funds, our resources. We got to hold each other closer
Accountable. Yeah.
because the enemy of the rise of the people will continue to do these things and they will continue to push their agenda. Like that man said, the attorney general said, he said, hey, this is a textbook is slam dunk. It's historic. You know, he dusting his shoulders. This is historic. I'm surprised he
Mm.
didn't get up there and do the Harlem Shake. You know what I'm saying? This is historic. This is great. We did this and we'll come and help you, you know? So think about that, family. We really need to make some moves towards community
There,
control.
there was something interesting that I heard yesterday. A case. It's absolutely ridiculous. A young lady in California, she took, she smoked marijuana. She took two bong hits, and then she proceeded to stab her boyfriend 108 times.
Mm,
And she went on trial, and she got, I think like 10 months probation and community service. That's it, because they said that she had marijuana induced psychosis. So that means that, like, anybody in California now can smoke weed and use that excuse. Like
yeah,
that, and yet, and then we're executing a man that's been on death row for 30 years, that was a man of God, that had given himself to Christ. Truly, there was many people that could vouch for that. His Bible was well worn. He was saved, he was reformed, and they killed him. But yet,
that's the thing. Like with the
where's
politics
the
of
justice?
yeah, where's justice? Like with the politics of the death penalty, depending on what state you in,
Yeah.
oftentimes what race the person is, what's the social economic status, who's the DA, what's their agenda, the attorney
Yeah.
general, what's their agenda. You got the liberal states, you got the conservative states. Down south is that hardcore. If you touch us, we gonna touch you mentality. I mean, it's just different mentalities when it comes to region and the politics.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the way it is. But we can change. Often, like if we look at the prime example, George Zimmerman, the one who killed Trayvon Martin, he used that stand your ground law in
Mhm.
Florida. even though he was hunting hunting Trayvon Martin down. He was hunting that young child down. But years later, it was that sister? I forget her name. It escapes me right now. It was so long ago. She used the same stand your ground defense against her abuser. She didn't kill. She didn't kill
Yeah.
the man. She fired in the air to stop a man that was abusing her, from potentially hurting her and her children. They sent her to prison. George Zimmerman is free, rolling around, potentially do the same thing again.
I remember that. I don't remember her name, but I do remember that too. It's like what's good for the goose is not good for the gander. I just want to read.
Was one of the same DAs involved in that case, the female DA that
Oh,
had something
really?
to do with the Zimmerman case that wouldn't allow the same defense to stand. So it's not always people can get away with the same defense. It's a lot of times what is the political agenda of the district attorney in the power structure?
What do they have to gain? Actually, I wanted to read Kenneth's last words were, tonight Alabama causes humanity to take a step backwards. Thank you for supporting me. Love all of you. Smith became the first person in the world to be put to death by nitrogen asphyxiation. And I also heard that he gave the I love you symbol to his family.
Yeah.
And Jeff Hood, his spiritual advisor, he was right there with him. And he said that he himself, he couldn't hold it together. He was losing. He was like crying. And Kenneth Smith was actually comforting him, saying, we're going to get through this. We're going to get through this. Like, let that sink in, you know? Like, I have chills just thinking about that. That man, he was brave, you know, and he accepted his fate. And he knew it. He knew where he was going to go. So, there was one more thing, too, another quote that was pretty intense by Brian Stevenson from the nonprofit Equal Justice Initiative. I don't know if you've ever heard it. He said, the threshold question of the death penalty isn't whether someone deserves to die for the crime they've committed. The threshold question is, do we deserve to kill? In our society, we don't rape people who rape. We don't torture people who torture. That's because we believe that the integrity of the law means we have to do better than the worst offenders in our society. So please let that sink in. Please. We got to do better. Yeah, we are our brother's keepers, you know? We're supposed to look out for each other. I don't give a damn what color you are. We are supposed to look out for one another and do what's right and love one another. And as a society, as a whole freaking world, we're going backwards, we're de-evolving, and we have, you know, just better technology to be shittier humans. And that is facts. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, thank you for reading that, and you know, it's a lot to think about. And thank y'all for joining us. We went over the mark, but this is a real important, heavy topic. We're gonna continue to keep bringing y'all these issues and reporting, and thank y'all for supporting us. Also, please go to mass incarceration must end inc.org. That's just Jeanette's website.
Yeah. I'm also looking for volunteers because I really could use some help. I'm getting very busy. If anybody wants to volunteer, just hit me up, email me, DM me, Facebook me, whatever. I'm here.
Yeah. Check out our t-shirts. Also go to freeourbrothers.com. That's my website, exposing Colorado's illegal lockup machine. Colorado does have death row. I'm pretty sure that in a little bit, nitrogen will be swinging over there as well. So we gotta come together and really make some moves, family. And big shout out and thank you to everyone that's been doing the work.
Yeah.
Man, fighting against this Leventon, this massive evil structure called the death penalty. Thank you. My heart goes out to you. I know every time someone gets executed, it hits you hard, and you still keep going. You still keep. Salute to y'all.
Yeah, definitely. It's not easy. I know someone on death row, and it's terrifying. Honestly, every day I'm just like just waiting, you know. So, um, yeah, thank you guys for your support, and please go onto YouTube and subscribe to the Liberty Podcast, and check us out once a week around Thursday. Yeah, thank you. Peace.